Welcome everyone to this episode of Technology Frustrations and Gimmicks, the show that educates the lost, the weary, and those who claim to know nothing about computers and technology. I'm your host and computer expert, Aaron Moss. This is episode 2 of 10 total episodes, all dealing with ways to speed up your computer. 101 ways to be exact. Too much info for one episode, so we made our entire full season of episodes on speeding up your computer. Please listen to all the other episodes to get the greatest benefit. So now we are on to way number 11, and that is to use multiple monitors. So when you're using a computer, one of the ways that you can speed up your experience, now we're not really technically speeding up the computer when we do this, but we're speeding up the way that you access information or how fast you can see information on your computer. You can work a lot faster if you have two monitors. Most computers have an auxiliary video output somewhere on the motherboard or on the side of the laptop that allows you to connect another screen to your system. And the nice thing about doing this is that it allows you to have a second screen utilizing the correct software settings within the Windows environment and whatever operating system you're working on. But if you could imagine, if you're working on a project where you have to go between two screens all the time, instead of closing one screen and opening another, you can just look to the other screen. That's a lot faster than having to click 3 buttons to look at something, then click back to go back to the other screen. You can have both screens up at the same time so that you can switch between them a lot faster. Now, technically, this does slow the computer down in the fact that it has to drive 2 monitors instead of 1, but the real benefit is how fast you're able to work between 2 programs running on the same computer. So in that way, it can speed up your user experience. Not necessarily the computer, but speeding up the user experience. Way number 12, clear the cache. Cache is spelled C-A-C-H-E. Now, the cache is our files on the computer. They're kind of like temporary files that the browser uses to help you navigate the internet better. But what tends to happen is these files get a little bit older and they need to be updated. So in order to kind of let them have fresh information, you may from time to time have to clear your cache. If you're using the Chrome browser, you can find it in settings. Just go into the settings. I like to call them the traffic lights in the upper right corners, like the 3 dots on top of each other. It's usually there, and then select settings, and then just do a search for clearing cache or just cache, C-A-C-H-E. And it's going to give you the option also of clearing the cookies as well. You can go ahead and do that. It's also going to ask you if you want to clear some other things, but the cache is the most important. You could also clear cache from other browsers going into internet settings as well. So I encourage you to kind of research how to do that, but if you're using the Chrome browser, which is a very, very popular browser, you can do it in that way. And when you clear the cache, it also helps with displaying websites properly. Usually if a website that you frequent is not operating correctly, or it's missing buttons, or you're clicking a button and it's not quite working, one of the things that you can do to make that website start working properly is to clear the cache, and it will start working faster as well. So in that way you can improve your experience just by clearing the cache. And by the way, this is very, very true when you are also encountering issues with your banks. So if you do any online bill pay, or you do your banking or any financials on your computer, This will happen a lot for some reasons with banks. Okay, a lot of it has to do with the type of security that they have on these websites, that the cache needs to be cleared. So if you ever run into these problems and you have to call the bank because the website's not working, one of the things that they're going to tell you is to try another browser or to clear the cache. Okay, so always keep that in mind. It's something that you don't have to do every day per se, but at least once a month. And if you're a very advanced and frequent user of the computer, you may have to do it maybe once a week. I have mine set, my Chrome browser, to clear the cache every time that I close the browser. Now, there are positives and negatives to doing that because many times the information, like my logins, all get shut off, and there are some things that I would prefer to have it saved. So there are some times where it's a little bit annoying, where I have to keep on re-signing myself in, and the computer has to continually re-identify myself. For example, a lot of again, banking websites, if the website thinks that you're logging in from different computers, it's going to want to verify who you are, because it may not recognize the computer, because it may recognize your same computer based on the file in the cache that it put on your computer before. So if you're clearing your cache every single time, like I am, okay, every time you log into your bank, you're going to have to go through this verification process instead of it letting you just go straight in. So you'd have to measure how you do your own computing and what you're willing to put up with in order to figure out what would be the best settings for you. Way number 13, run a defrag. Defrag or disfragment is a word that basically means to reassemble or put like files together on the same hard drive. So in order to understand what a defrag is, you have to know a little bit about hard drives and how information is stored on them. So I'm going to attempt to explain in layman's terms as best as I can. So when you save a file, okay, on a hard drive, which is just a spinning platter with a reader, kind of like a record player, okay, when it is writing things onto the hard drive or reading things from the hard drive, if it's a large file, it doesn't put it all together. It may put the first part, in this section, and may put the middle part in another sector of the hard drive, and the last part in a third section or sector of the hard drive, because it may not have space to put the whole thing together. So when you want to pull up that file in its entirety, what the computer has to do, and it does it very fast, what it has to do is it has to find all the parts of that file, pull them into RAM, and then display them on your screen. Now, it would be able to read a lot faster if all the parts of that file were in the same section on the hard drive. So instead of it having to look for 100 different parts of one file, okay, it would only have to go to one section and read the entire file from that one section. Therefore, you can read it faster, it would pull up faster, and it would also save faster. And this is, we're talking about thousands of cycles, sometimes millions of cycles that you would be saving in order to read the same file. So when you run a defrag, and a defrag is a utility that's on all Windows computers, and it is something that it used to be something that that Windows would encourage you to do every month, or sometimes every couple of months, just to keep your computer in tip-top running condition. You would run a defrag. The defrag can take quite a long time. It can, in some cases, even take overnight in order to complete. However, there is a caution with running a defrag. If you know for certain that you do have a solid-state drive, an SSD, you don't want to run a defrag, because the data is saved very, very differently in a SSD than it is a standard traditional mechanical drive. You could actually do more damage or slow your computer down if you try to defrag an SSD. So this tip does not apply if your computer has an SSD, only if it has the mechanical older style hard drive. So you might have to do a little bit of research in order to do that. Way number 14, set system to higher performance or to high performance. So believe it or not, your computer, you could actually tell your computer whether or not you want to run at high performance or not. So now the disadvantage of running high performance is that the computer will generate more heat. It may wear out certain components faster than normal. This can be done in two ways, and they're basically settings within Windows. So in order to, I'll tell you about the first way. The first way is you go to File Explorer, and basically that's just the window that has all of your files. You've probably been there many times. So just open up that window that has all your files, like my documents, my pictures, my videos, and all that. On the left-hand panel, you should see something that says computer or my computer or even this PC. And you're going to right-click that and click properties. Once you're in properties, you want to click the Advanced Systems Settings on the left panel. And that's going to bring you to another window where it's going to be broken up into several parts, but you're going to see a section on that window called Performance. Next, in that section for Performance, you're going to select the option for Best Performance. So you're going to click Settings where it says Performance, and then on the next window, you're going to click the option for Best Performance, and then at the bottom, click Apply. That's the first way. And what this will do, what this high performance section setting is going to do is it's going to shut off all of the small little knickknacks that make the operating system visually appealing. So like when you open and close Windows, there's like a little graphic where you could actually see the window kind of crumble down and go down into the taskbar. Or when you open up another browser or another window, you could actually see it come out from the bottom and show up. Okay, that is actually a graphic where it's actually taking up cycles in the computer to actually give you that motion. Okay, now that motion and even the background text and also some of the graphic things that make the computer visually appealing, it's going to shut all those features off. So your computer is going to look very different, but it will still be 100% functional of what it was doing before. The buttons are going to look different, the way the mouse appears will be different, but it will be faster. The other way that you can set your system to high performance is you can go into the power. You can go into the power settings, okay, and when you go into the power and sleep settings, there's usually a section in there also for high performance. Okay, there's usually balanced performance. There's Energy Star performance, where you're using where you're trying to conserve energy, and then there's high performance. So you want to select high performance in the power and settings area of the control panel as well. I'll probably put a nice video link in there where where somebody is showing you how to do that as well. So again, those are two ways to actually set your computer to high performance. And when you do these two high performance settings, your computer will be working faster, but you may be sacrificing a little bit of your graphics and a little bit of the animation. That's the other word I was looking for before. A lot of the animation or moving parts of your windows and actions and the appearance of your mouse. Way number 15, set up RAID. RAID is spelled R-A-I-D. RAID stands for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Drives. So what that basically means, now this is also used in big data centers. There are several different types of RAIDs. There's RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 6, and I believe there is also a RAID 8. So what a RAID actually is, it's when you have more than one drive working together, and basically the work of what the drive needs to do is split between those drives. So for example, if a drive has to save 100 gigabytes of data, in a RAID configuration, that data could be split. Okay, you save 33 gigs, you save 33 gigs, and the fourth one saved 34 gigs of the total 100 gigs. So the benefit of doing that, if each drive is only doing a fraction of the work, then the overall speed of the read and write of that array or that group of drives is faster. And the way the array is set up, you put these drives in a kit, and the computer reads the kit or that series of drives as not as the 3, 4, 8 drives that they truly are, but it reads it as one drive. So the benefit of doing it that way, of course, is the speed, and you also get to multiply the capacity, the storage capacity of all the drives. So if you're working with 500 gig drives and you have 4 of them, 500 times 4 drives will give you 2,000 gigs or 2 terabytes. And if each of the speed or the read-write speed of each one is, say, 500 megabytes per second, then you can multiply the read-write speed. So 500 times 500 megabytes times the 4 drives that are reading at that speed, you can probably write at 2 gigs per second, because each of those four drives is only doing 1/4 of the work. The same thing is true when they're reading or when you're getting information from them. Each one is only providing 1/4 of the data, but it's receiving it very, very fast. Okay, so this configuration is used in data centers. Big, expensive, well-known data centers, Google data centers, Amazon data centers, Facebook does this. Okay, any large operation that is always putting out data and receiving data constantly, you bet your bottom dollar they are using some sort of RAID configuration in their data centers. You could actually set up RAID on some of these computers that have room for multiple drives. So if you've ever opened up a computer and you saw multiple drives or multiple drive ports on there, or if you've ever looked at a motherboard that has 5, 6, 7, 8 ports for hard drives, and you're thinking to yourself, why would somebody ever put 8 hard drives in here? That's the reason why. You can set up those 8 or 4 ports as a RAID within the BIOS configuration, or you can get an external RAID kit where it'll allow you to put together multiple drives that work together in a RAID configuration. So it's something very, very something very interesting to look into. Something very, very usable. It's been around for a while, and it's a technology that is continuing to improve. So always keep up to date on what is going on with RAID, and you may even be able to use RAID in your main computer or your server in your business if you're trying to get some more speed out of it and you don't really want to invest in a whole new system. The next way number 16 is to flush DNS. Flush DNS is a command that you can put onto your computer, and what the flush DNS actually does is it clears the computer's database or registry of websites with their associated IP addresses. The way this, so in order to understand that, you kind of have to understand a little bit about what DNS is. DNS stands for Domain Name Server. Every website out there has a name, and it also has an IP address associated with it. For example, if you were to go to facebook.com, like actually type that in your browser window, and you hit enter, the computer does not go out looking for facebook.com. What it's actually doing is it's sending a signal to what's called a domain name server, and that domain name server has a kind of like a phone book directory of names associated with the IP numbers, sort of like a phone book. Okay, just like if you're trying to look up somebody's name in the phone book, okay, you don't just pick up your phone, right, and just say the person's name. Kind of. I know we're living in 2019, but you would have to have some sort of phone number behind that. Okay, even if your smartphone now these days, you can just tell your phone to call Bob, and it'll look for a Bob in your contacts, and hopefully there's a phone number associated with Bob, and it'll dial that number. But what's really happening in the background when you're going onto a website, it's trying to find the phone number or IP address of that domain or website that you're trying to go to. Once it finds it, then it redirects it back to the computer, and then the computer looks for that IP address on the World Wide Web. And if it finds it, and it's all done pretty quickly, it'll return to you the homepage of that website, or whatever the URL of that website that you're requesting is. From time to time, that DNS that is stored in your computer needs to be flushed. And when it is flushed, you need to make sure that you're doing it properly. So the way that you do it is you open up your command prompt in your computer, and you type in the following command. It is ipconfig /flush DNS. Okay, again, that's ipconfig /flush DNS. Now, what you'll notice is the moment you do that, it takes just a few seconds for it to flush, but immediately after you go to your web browser, you're going to notice that it's going to run extremely fast. Okay, from when you just did it, but it's only going to run like that for like just a few seconds while it's repopulating. But you'll end up with faster performance after you've actually after it has actually regenerated the database for that, and in the end, you're actually going to end up with faster performance with your web browsing. Okay, so you want to do your flush DNS I would do that maybe once a month, right along with your defrag if you are running with a mechanical drive like we had discussed before. The next way is way number 17. Use hardwire instead of wireless. This is pretty straightforward. Okay, most of your computers, they can either be connected either through wire or wireless connection. And with a wireless connection, you will actually get the top speed that you can get usually with a wireless connection is 3 times slower than a hardwire. And the same thing is true whether it's a 2.4 or 5.0 connection. You will always get your best speed from hardwire, not wireless. Okay, there's all kinds of factors that get involved with this. Okay, that is where the walls are in the TV, what type of interference, if you're living in a place where you have a lot of neighbors that are also using Wi-Fi, what kind of device you have, if it's capable of receiving 2.4 or 5.0 gigahertz signals from your router, things like that. But you have to understand, nothing beats hardwire. Hardwire is what you always want to go for. It's actually cheaper. The only drawback to using hardwire is actually running the actual wire. So if your router is on one side of the house and your computer is on the opposite side of the house, it's you either have to run an ugly cord along the ground, or get somebody to professionally drill the cord through the walls of your house, or run it along the ceiling, along the wall, or along the floor, something along those lines. So as long as it is hardwire connected, you're always going to have better performance than with wireless. Way number 18, and that is to shut off your screensaver. And so a screensaver back in the day, with CRTs, if you left the same image on your screen for an extended period of time, what would happen to the screen is that image would get burned into the screen. So even when you were at a different screen, you can still see some sort of latent image of the old screen that was kind of burned there. So what the Windows and other developers came up with, that if you walked away from your computer screen and the computer didn't detect any activity for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 4 hours, you can always set it, it would switch into a screensaver mode, where it would just put it would either turn the screen off, or you would get these moving bubbles or moving lines, or you would have this graphic kind of floating around the screen. And this was just to keep the screen from not showing the same graphic all the time. And it would prevent the screen from having an image burned into the screen from it displaying all the time. But this was highly regarded as something that was appropriate to CRT monitors. CRT monitors, cathode ray tubes, those are the kind of monitors and TVs that were bulky, they were deep. When you knock on it, it was like actual glass. Okay, but if you have a more modern flat screen monitor, when I say flat screen, I'm not just talking about the screen being flat. I'm talking about the back being flat, something that you can put flat up against the wall, type of thing. If that's a style, then you don't really need to turn on a screensaver or even have screensaver. Okay, the screensaver doesn't really, the new kind of monitors just don't have that burning of the latent image in the screen. They just don't, they can handle putting the same image on the screen for long periods of time, and you won't get that burned image anymore because it's a later technology. So although your computer system may have the ability to do the screensaver, I recommend keeping it off. The reason why it makes a difference of speeding up your computer is it takes time for the computer to wake up from screensaver mode back into your regular mode. And when you're about to get back on your computer and you want to be able to move and start clicking things immediately, sometimes it takes 10 seconds or sometimes more for the computer to recover out of screensaver mode. So you want to, in order to stop that from happening, just tell the computer never to go into screensaver mode. You can easily do that in the display settings in Control Panel. Way number 19, use a blank background. So the background of the computer, when you first turn the computer on, when you're at your desktop screen, your main screen, some people like to put pictures of their kids, pictures of their dog, an airplane, a sports car, or something else. They like to have that background back there. Did you know that background is just sitting in your RAM, taking up space? Now, the RAM of the computer has a lot to do with what is displayed on the screen, and it is a center for determining how fast things operate on screen and in your computer. So if you have unnecessary things sitting in RAM, such as the background image of your computer, especially if it's a high definition picture, or if it's a picture that's very large in file size, your computer has to load that picture every time you turn the computer on, or every time you open up another window in front of it and you have to close it. It's got to load that picture back up again. So if you were to just leave your computer with just a blank default blue, or a blank default black, or a blank default white, or just a solid color, okay, that is within the settings, it's very, very dull. It makes your computer look dumb, yes, but it makes the computer faster. Okay, so if you use a blank background, you'll free up more space in your RAM and your computer will run faster. Way number 20, use keyboard strokes. Now, this can be very, very interesting. There are some people out there that I know that do this very, very well. And keystrokes are there are all kinds of keystrokes that are out there that are just built into the system. So it takes less time to say, for example, if you were to hit Control A. Control A is actually a shortcut for highlighting or selecting everything in the window that you're on. So if you're in your file manager and you want to select a bunch of files, instead of clicking and dragging that imaginary box to highlight everything, you can just hit Control A and it's done. Okay, instead of right-clicking and clicking to copy, or right-click to paste, you can just hit Control C or Control V. It's a lot faster. Okay, another thing that I like to use is Control M, and that means to minimize all. So if you have a bunch of things open and you just want to go straight to your desktop and you don't want to minimize everything, which takes time, you can just hit Control M once and bam, you're right back at your desktop and you can get things done faster. Now, you can do this multiple times a day. You can start shaving off seconds or sometimes even minutes of things that you're doing during the day that are just taking up so much time. Okay, so in that way, using keystrokes, and there are lots of keystrokes. There are websites out there that list what all these keystrokes are, but you have to use them habitually in order to really get the fast action. If you know anyone who's a programmer, programmers love using the keyboard strokes. On occasion, you may see them use their mouse, or they'll have one hand on the keyboard, one hand on the mouse. The hand that's on the keyboard is using all of the shortcuts, and the hand on the mouse is basically activating the windows where they're using the keystrokes on. You can get very, very fast with this if you practice and memorize all these keystrokes. But these keystrokes are out there, and they can make your usability extremely fast, and I've seen it done very often. That's it for this episode of Technology Frustrations and Gimmicks, which is sponsored by Computer Doctor of Tucson, a licensed desktop, laptop service, and support center working on all makes and models of computers up to 20 years old. If you are on a tight budget, enroll in our rent-to-own program on laptop and desktop systems for families, schools, and businesses with tech support included. Their main number is 520-261-5508 or visit our website at computerdoctor.xyz. Computer Doctor of Tucson, where they always take good care of you. I know because it's my company. Let us know you're listening by making a comment or clicking the like button. Stay tuned for more episodes of our show. Until then, see you next time.